What are your funniest NSFW jokes? The new Marine captain was assigned to a recon company in a remote post in the desert. During his first inspection, he noticed a camel hitched up behind the mess tent. He asks the first sergeant why the camel is kept there. "Well, sir," is the nervous reply. "As you know, there are 250 men here and no women. And sir, sometimes the men have urges. That's why we have the camel, sir." The captain says, "I can't say that I condone this, but I understand about urges. So the camel can stay." About a month later, the captain starts having a real problem with his own urges. Crazy with passion, he asks the first sergeant to bring the camel to his tent. Putting a stool behind the camel, the captain stands on it, pulls down his pants, and has wild, insane sex with the camel. When he is done, he asks the first sergeant, "Is that how the men do it?" "No sir," the first sergeant replies. "They usually just ride the camel into town where the girls are." A mother, father, and 6-year-old son go to a zoo, where they stop to see the elephant. While the father's in the bathroom, the son notices one elephant has a rather large erection. Curious, he gets his mom's attention. "Mommy, what's that hanging from the elephant?" "Oh, that's its trunk, honey." "No. Further back." "Ah, you mean its tail?" "No. Between its legs." "That. What is that?" The mother goes red. "Oh, that's nothing, honey." The father returns and the mother goes off to use the bathroom. Still curious, the son asks his dad, "Daddy, what's that hanging from the elephant?" "His trunk." "Son. No. Further back." "You mean his tail?" "No. That thing. Between his legs." "Oh. That. Well, that's the elephant's penis." "Oh. Why did mommy say it was nothing?" "Son, I have spoiled that woman." 3 men get stranded on a desert island. After wandering around a while, they are found by some tribesmen. The natives take them back to their hut. The chief tells them, "Go out into the jungle and collect 10 pieces of fruit." The first guy returns with 10 apples. And the chief says, "Now shove them all up your ass without showing any emotion, or we'll kill you." He shoves the first up, and is in terrible pain, but shows no emotion. But during the process of pushing up the second, he flinches, and therefore gets shot. The second guy comes back with 10 cherries, and gets told to do the same. He's finding it relatively easy, but when he gets to the 8th, starts laughing hysterically, and gets shot. He meets up with the first guy in heaven. The first guy asks, "Why did you do that? Why did you laugh?" And the second guy replies, "Well, I nearly finished when I saw the next guy walking up with 10 pineapples." A man buys a pack of condoms at the pharmacy. The pharmacist says, "Large pack." "Huh." The guy buying says, "Yeah. I'm meeting my girlfriend's parents tonight. After dinner when we go home we'll be getting it on." Later at the dinner, the guy is praying before he eats his food. His girlfriend says, "I didn't know you were religious." The guy replies, "I didn't know your dad was a pharmacist." "I felt unwell so went to the doctor. He said, 'Well, you're going to have to stop masturbating.' Apostrophe. I said, 'Why is that?' Apostrophe. He said, 'Because I'm trying to take your temperature.'" What do you do if your wife starts smoking? Slow down and use some lubricant. A guy and a girl meet up in a hospital elevator. The girl says, "I'm here to give blood. They give me $10 every time I give blood." "What are you here for?" The man says, "I'm here to donate semen. They give me $50 every time I donate." They go their separate ways until a week later when the man sees the girl rushing for the elevator. He holds the door open for her until she gets in. "Here to donate blood again?" he asks. She shakes her head. A priest is checking into a hotel and says to the front desk clerk, I hope the pornography on the TV is disabled. The clerk responds. No. It's regular PRN, you sick duck. What did the elephant ask the naked man? How do you breathe out of that thing? What's the difference between a pickpocket and a peeping Tom? A pickpocket snatches watches. What did the lesbian vampire say to the other lesbian vampire? Same time next month? My girlfriend tried to make me have sex on the hood of her Honda Civic. I refused. If I'm going to have sex, it's going to be on my own accord. My colleague can no longer attend next week's Innuendo seminar. I have to fill her slot instead. Man walks by a shop. There is a sign out front that says cheese sandwiches $1. Hand jobs $5. So he walks in. Sees a beautiful blonde standing behind the counter. He asks, "Are you the woman who gives the hand jobs?" She says, "Why yes I am," in a very flirty tone. Father comes home and little Johnny comes running and tears. Dad, Sparky died. I came home and he was lying on his back with his feet in the air. Dad tries to find the right words. Eventually explained Sparky is reaching up so Jesus can reach down and take him to heaven. Johnny mulls this over. It makes sense and he feels better. Weeks later, Johnny comes running out in a state of panic. Dad, Mommy almost died today. Oh my god. What happened? I came home early from school and heard moaning. Mommy was on her back with her feet in the air screaming "Assiduous. I'm coming." And if it wasn't for Uncle Bobby holding her down, we would have lost her for sure. 3 men are at the gates of heaven. Saint Peter says heaven is a big place. And you'll need a vehicle to get around. You'll get one based on how faithful you were to your partner. The first man says, "In our 4 decades of marriage, never once was I even attracted to another woman. I was only faithful to my wife." Saint Peter gives him a Rolls Royce. The second man says, "Well, sometimes I had a few one-night stands. But I still loved my wife. And never lapsed anytime else." Saint Peter gives him a moderately expensive car. The third man says, "I'm sorry to say this, but I was incredibly unfaithful. I had affairs every week." He gets a bicycle. The 3 men meet a few minutes later. The first guy is crying. The second man asks, "Why are you crying? You have a Rolls Royce." And the first guy says, "Well, I just saw my wife riding by on a skateboard." Mickey and Minnie Mouse are at a divorce court. Lawyer. "So Mickey, it says you want to divorce Minnie because she's extremely silly?" Mickey. "No. I said she was ducking Goofy." A young Greek couple are about to get married, and before the nuptials, the young woman's mother pulls her aside for a quick chat. "Now you're about to be married," begins the mother. And Greek men are known to prefer sex in a very specific way, so at some point, he may ask you to also turn around. I want you to know that it's okay to say no if you don't want to do it that way. The wedding day comes and goes and there's no also turn around request from her new husband. No request on the honeymoon nor through their first year. No special request for their first anniversary. Or their second. Halfway through their 3rd year, her husband says, "You know, if you want, you can turn around and we can try this a different way." The woman says, No. My mother warned me that this day might come and she told me I never have to do that if I don't want to." The husband replies, "That's fine with me. But I thought you wanted kids one day." What happens when you mix human DNA with goat DNA? You get kicked out of the petting zoo. Bill worked in a pickle factory. He had been employed there for a number of years when he came home one day to confess to his wife that he had a terrible compulsion. He had an urge to stick his penis into the pickle slicer. His wife suggested that he should see a sex therapist to talk about it. But Bill indicated that he'd be too embarrassed. He vowed to overcome the compulsion on his own. One day a few weeks later, Bill came home absolutely ashen. His wife could see at once that something was seriously wrong. "What's wrong, Bill?" She asked. Do you remember that I told you how I had this tremendous urge to put my penis into the pickle slicer? Oh. Bill. You didn't. Yes. I did. My god. Bill. What happened? I got fired. No. Bill. I mean. What happened with the pickle slicer? Oh. She got fired too. Sex is like playing bridge or if you don't have a good partner. Me. Do you know the difference between a blowjob and a Big Mac? Them. No me. Want to have lunch? What does a horny frog say? Rub it. A man is standing naked on a street corner. A cop walks up and tells him, sir, you can't be doing that here unless you have a good excuse. I am going to take you to jail. Yes sir, I have a good excuse. I was at my girlfriend's apartment. We started drinking. Next thing you know, she jumps up and says, let's get naked and go to town. I guess I beat her here. What do the Pope and a Christmas tree have in common? And you often have kids playing round them. A guy walks up to a WH house. There's a sign on it that says, we're closed. Beat it. Sister Claire and Sister Teresa are driving down a desert highway when the devil appears on their hood, making threatening gestures. Quick. Sister Teresa says, show him your cross. Sister Claire leans out the window, shouting, PSS off you bastard. I'll kick you in the ducking balls if you try that shit again. Don't mess with me, you prick. Two nuns are riding bicycles through the city when they take a turn down a cobblestone street. Shortly the first nun turns to the second nun and says, I've never come this way before. The second nun shouts, me either. I think it's the cobblestones. A young man walks up and sits down at the bar. What can I get you? The bartender inquires. I want 6 shots of Jägermeister, responded the young man. 6 shots? Are you celebrating something? Yeah. My first blowjob. Well. In that case. Let me give you a 7th on the house. No offense, sir. But if 6 shots won't get rid of the taste, nothing will. One night. As a couple lay down for bed. The husband gently taps his wife on the shoulder and starts rubbing her arm. The wife turns over and says, I'm sorry honey. I've got a gynecologist appointment tomorrow and I want to stay fresh. The husband, rejected, turns over and tries to sleep. A few minutes later, he rolls back over and taps his wife again. This time he whispers in her ear, do you have a dentist appointment tomorrow too? What do a coffin and a condom have in common? They both hold stiffs. Only one's coming and one's going. A guy was golfing and just hit his best drive ever. As he makes his way down the fairway to his ball, he notices it had landed in a beautiful patch of buttercups. He says to himself, I can't hit my ball from here. It would destroy these beautiful flowers. So he picks up his ball and moves it a few feet over to save the buttercups. Out of nowhere, Mother Nature shows up and she says to him, thank you so much for not destroying my beautiful flowers, and I would like to give you a gift. Here's a lifetime supply of butter, and poof, she flew away. He thought that was very nice of Mother Nature to give him all this butter. Then he said to himself, damn. A new farmer doesn't know where to start. So he enlists the help of his neighbor, a man who has run a successful farm for many years. What must I do to be a successful farmer? He asks. The old timer says, first you must go to the market and buy a pullet, female chicken, and a cock, male chicken. While you are there, also buy yourself an ass, donkey, to help you carry them back to the farm. So the new farmer does as the old man says, and is in the middle of riding the ass back to the farm when it stops in the middle of the road, refusing to take another step. The new farmer can't do much while he's holding a chicken under each arm. But as it happens, an old lady is coming down the road toward him. Thinking quickly, he asks, excuse me, Mom? If you would be so kind, could you hold my cock and pull it while I slap my ass? A delivery man is making a delivery to an apartment building when a gorgeous woman answers the door in nothing but a bath towel. The man turns red at the sight and quickly looks down. She looks around and pulls the man inside. "Sorry I was so rough. I thought I heard someone coming," she says. Then the woman takes off the towel and presses herself against the man. She leans her lips to his ear and whispers in a sultry voice, "What do you think is the most impressive part of my body?" The man thinks for a moment and says, "Your ears." Clearly confused, the woman says, "My ears?" "Definitely," says the man. "When you said I thought I heard someone coming, that was me." A man moves into a new town and wants to make friends. He goes to the local bar and orders a drink. The bartender says, "Hey, you're new. Want to try our bar challenge for new guys?" The man says, "Let me hear it." The bartender then goes on and says, "Well, first you need to drink this whole bottle of Patron without stopping. Then you have to juggle these 10 beer bottles. After that, there is a gator outside with a loose tooth. Then there is my poor old sister upstairs that has never had an orgasm in her life." The man says, "F that, I am not doing that," but after a few beers he says, "Give me that Patron." With fire in his eyes, he chugs the Patron no problem. He juggles the beer bottles with no problem. Then he goes outside to the gator. The occupants then hear the gator roar and scratch the man. They have groans and moans from the man. Then they hear silence. The man comes back into the bar still adjusting his plants and says, "Okay. Now where is that woman with the loose tooth?" A businessman boards a flight and is lucky enough to be seated next to an absolutely gorgeous woman. They exchange brief hellos and he notices she is reading a manual about sexual statistics. He asks her about it and she replies, "This is a very interesting book about sexual statistics. It identifies that American Indians have the longest average penis and Polish men have the biggest average diameter. By the way, my name is Jill. What's yours?" He coolly replies, "Ponto Kowalski. Nice to meet you." This one is long and weird, but please bear with me. Little Jimmy walked into the kitchen to find his grandpa smoking cigarettes. "Can I smoke a cigarette too?" asked Jimmy. "Can your DCK reach your own butthole?" asked Grandpa. "No," answered Jimmy. "Then you are not old enough," replied Grandpa. The next day, Jimmy walked into the kitchen to find his grandpa drinking beer. "Can I drink some beer too?" asked Jimmy. "Can your DCK reach your own butthole?" asked Grandpa. "No," answered Jimmy. "Then you are not old enough," replied Grandpa. The next day, Grandpa found Jimmy eating cookies in the kitchen. "Can I eat some cookies too?" asked Grandpa. "Can your DCK reach your own butthole?" asked Jimmy. "It most certainly can," answered Grandpa. "Then go duck yourself," replied Jimmy. Two men are out hunting. One of them goes into the bushes to take a leak. A few moments later, there's a scream. The man's buddy runs up. "What happened to you?" the buddy asks. "A snake bit me in the DCK," he answers, pointing to said snake. "Kicked to death. Call the doctors." The buddy picks up his phone. Makes the call. "Doctor's office. How can we help you? My friend got bitten by a snake." "What did it look like?" "Red with yellow stripes." "I see. You have to suck out the poison. Understand?" "Yes. I understand." He hangs up. "Come on. What did they say?" "She says you're dead, mate." Who is the most popular man in the nudist colony? The guy who can carry 2 drinks and 4 donuts. And who is the most popular woman in the nudist colony? Did you hear about how the constipated mathematician cured himself? He worked it out with a pencil. Is that why it's called a number 2 pencil? What's the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean? I've never had a garbanzo bean on my chest. A penguin's AC in his car goes out while driving through town on a hot day. He pulls into a mechanic repair shop to have them take a look at it. While waiting, the penguin feels it's too hot to just be standing around waiting. So he waddles over to the ice cream store and orders an ice cream cone to cool off. He heads back to the mechanic after they finish diagnosing the issue with his car. "It looks like you blew a seal," the mechanic told him. "What? No," the penguin says while wiping his chin. "That's just ice cream." Larry comes home to find a gorilla on his roof. After calling several animal control numbers in the phone book, he finally calls a man who thinks he can handle this gorilla. The man arrives at the house in a white pickup truck with his dog in the passenger seat and a rifle in the back. He hands the rifle to Larry and says, "So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to climb up onto your roof and scare the gorilla off. Once he hits the ground, I've trained my dog to go bite his nuts and shake them until the gorilla passes out. After that I'll load him up and go release him in the hills." Larry thinks about it and decides the plan isn't half bad and may actually work. "But why'd you give me the rifle? If I fall off the roof, shoot the dog." It. "Oh, didn't expect this to blow up. Thanks all for the awards. I had archived it from our jokes sometime in the last decade. Glad I was able to make so many people laugh today." A Viagra delivery truck was stopped and robbed near my house. Police have warned local residents to watch for hardened criminals. 3 generations of prostitutes are sitting around a table. The youngest starts complaining. "Can you believe it? It's $20 for a blowjob. I'm getting robbed." Her mother looks at her and says, "Bitch. When I was giving head it was $5. Granny, who's sitting there rattling her teacup, says, "Well, during the Depression." You can really draw this one out. But I don't have time to do that. Here's the gist. A guy traveling through Ireland walked into a pub and sits down next to a scruffy old man. The old man asks him his name and the man says Michael. "But people call me Mikey." The old man says, "In your best scruffy Irish accent, nicknames are a funny thing. Me name's McGillicuddy. But that's not what they call me. You see, I once rebuilt a bridge going into town with me bare hands after a storm. But people don't say, oh look, there goes bridge building McGillicuddy. Nope. And you know what else? I once pulled 10 kids out of a burn-in school. But no one says here comes McGillicuddy the hero. Nope. I also went out in the dead of winter to hunt for food for the whole village, saving us from starvation. But no one calls me McGillicuddy the hunter." The man responds, "So, what do they call you?" Full stop. The scruffy Irish man takes a big swig of Guinness and says, "Well, let me tell you something, boyo. You duck one sheep." What did Cinderella do when she got to the ball? So there's this homeless man going to a brothel to get a blowjob. She's blowing him and says, "Man, it's not even getting hard." And he says, "Os not hard, but clean." What's the difference between a dirty bus stop and a lobster with breast implants? One is a crusty bus station. The other is a busty crustacean. What's the difference between a mallard with a cough and your mother? One's a sick duck. And I can't remember the rest. But your mother's a WH-re. A turtle wants to see a PRN movie, but isn't allowed into the theater. A man sees the turtle's disappointment and offers to hide it in his pocket. He pays, and so they both go in and find a seat. Further down the row there is a couple watching the movie. After a while the woman elbows her husband. Look what this guy has peeping out of his pants." He is annoyed. Woman: "This is a PRN movie. My DCK is out. Too." She hesitates. "Yes, I know. But yours is not munching nachos." A father tucks his daughter into bed one night. And he says, "Right. Say your good nights." She says, "Good night, mommy. Good night, daddy. Good night, grandma. Goodbye, grandpa." He thinks it's weird, but shrugs it off. The next day, the grandpa dies. A couple months later, he is tucking her in again and asks her to say her good nights. She says, "Good night, mommy. Good night, daddy. Goodbye, grandma," not remembering what happened last time. He shakes his head and goes to bed. The next day, the grandma dies. He is really freaked out this time. But he figures no one will believe him. So while he debates what to do, he goes about his normal life. He's tucking in his daughter the next week. And again, asks her to say her goodnights. She says, "Good night, mommy." And "Goodbye, daddy." He freaks out. Doesn't get any sleep that night. But goes to work anyways because he's afraid that the house will spontaneously burn down if he stays. He gets home to find his wife sitting at the counter, head in her hands. "What's wrong? Honey? What happened?" he says. She looks at him. "You'll never guess what happened today. The mailman dropped dead on my doorstep." You know what women say to a guy with big DCK?